Welcome everybody, thanks for coming. Thank you Godric, thank you Alex for attending. We have a wonderful compere for the evening, Mike to do it as well, and after the Fans Forum Q&A we will move into the AGM part afterwards. Hopefully everybody can stay for that as well. We are on video tonight, so if you don't want to be here, stay the other side of the camera, and we look forward to catching up later. So I'm going to hand you over to Mike, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Great to see so many of you here tonight for this Fans Forum ahead of your AGM. I'll introduce our two guests in a second, just to give you a flavour of how the evening is going to run. If you were here last year, you'll be familiar with the format. It's an open Q&A session. We'll try and run it for around about 45 minutes to an hour, depending how much enthusiasm there is for questions and debate. I will ask, when I ask for questions, if you just put your hand up, wait for me to come to you with the microphone, and then before you ask the question, just say who you are, which will help enormously everybody else. So without further ado, let me just thank and introduce our two guests for this evening. We've got Alex Tunbridge and Godric Smith. And let's hear it for both of them. And I'm sure they will be able to answer whatever questions you dare to throw at them, or at least give a good impression of us answering them. So, without any more preamble, who wants to ask the first question? As always, there's a mad stampede right at the very beginning. It's been a quiet week, quiet season, and not much happening. Here we go.
Trevor George, bit difficult employed by the club.
Can you take the mic, Trevor?
Trevor George, bit difficult employed by the club. Give us your thinking about bringing the two back. No problem with it, just like to know the background thinking, because it was a little bit of a surprise to some of us. Certainly bringing Neil back. I've listened to him on video, sounds very good, but you're thinking about it, please.
Well, thanks very much, everybody, for coming tonight. Before I answer that, it's a very fair question. I'd just like to say, genuinely, a really big thank you to all of you, but to all our fans for this season. I appreciate it's been a really tough season. There hasn't been a huge amount to cheer about, but I think our fans have been absolutely magnificent. I've been at just about every game this season, and the support has been unstinting in bad times and in sort of quite mediocre times, but it was fantastic to see everybody getting behind the team on Saturday. We're in a real fight now to the end of the season, and I think the fan support is going to be more important than it's ever been to try and get us over the line. To answer the question, I mean, clearly this season has not gone in the way that any of us would have wanted it to. I think if I can just say a little bit about that before I answer the question in terms of the decisions that have been made. I think if we stand back and bit of feedback. If we stand back and sort of analyse, you know, as a board and an ownership group, how we've got to this point, I think we have to acknowledge that, you know, hands up, we have made some mistakes over the course of this season. I think it's only right that you actually acknowledge that and say that you're going to try and learn the lessons. So I think standing back, we probably tried to move too quickly from one style to another under Gary at the start of this season. I think aligned with that, I think we have had a really, really bad run of injuries. Now you can make arguments that in terms of some of the recruitment, some players have had injury history, and but I don't think any of us could have predicted the sequence of injuries that we've had over the course of this season. I also think allied to that, and again, if you look at the first 9 games of the season, we had 1 point. I think if you were to play those 9 games any other time, we would have more points. So I think there was some genuinely difficult moments and some bad luck. And I think that all basically came to the point where over the course of recent months, we've been, when you're down at the bottom, clearly as a board and owners and executive, people are discussing, whether it's time to make a change. You've seen the statements that the board put out over the course of this season. We felt that there were mitigating circumstances, as I've touched on, that actually the level of performance.
Can we do anything about that? Yeah, we'll swap mics. Just
Yeah,
try that. It's not that. I don't think it's going to make a difference.
keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Shall I keep going? That there were mitigating circumstances, and that it wasn't time to make a change, and that we should continue to back Gary, to invest in the window, and to see if we could start to see a turnaround of our fortunes. And I think if you looked at some of the performances in January, you could start to see, with players coming back, some improvement. But in the end, I think we took the decision we took the decision after the Exeter game that it was time to make a change. Just winding back a little bit from that, we'd also come to a mutual agreement with Ben Strang, who, after a significant period at the club, I think by mutual consent we agreed that we were better off, probably on both sides, to part company, and that now was the right time to make a change there. Ben, who I can only praise for the professionalism and the quality that he showed in that moment, said, "Well, look, I will see you through to the transfer window," and we tried to do as much business as we possibly could during that window. But we found ourselves in the position where it was time to make a change at sporting director, so that we could look really, as I think the statement that we put out said, that we were doing the first part of a review. We decided we needed to make change, but the second half of the review, we think we now need somebody to come in and to look at all the football operation side of the football club. Not to say that we don't have great people there who aren't working flat out and doing some great work, but there's time now to have a complete look, I think, at all the different elements of the football operation and to see whether we can make improvements. That's why Mark Bonner's come back. We think he's somebody of huge character, of huge talent, and that this is the right time for us and for him to make this switch. He knows the club. He's been a big part of our success over this period, and after a significant discussion on both sides, we all agreed that this was right, that he should rejoin as director of football. On the head coach side, we obviously have had a difficult season. We know that Neil left us, and we understand the reasons for that. But I think what we're wanting to do in bringing Neil back is just to make sure that we have a relentless focus on what it takes to win. We know that Neil is a winner. We know that he is somebody who has achieved significant success, both at this level and at a higher level. And we just felt the time was right for Neil to come back. Neil wanted to come back. We all understood the circumstance in the moment in which he left, which was unique. There was a special relationship with him, with Millwall. Neil has come back and he has acknowledged that there were sort of areas that he might have handled differently, but now is the time for us all to move forward. And I think we feel that with Mark and with Neil, we have a really good combination of two individuals who share exactly the same values, who are real Cambridge United people, actually, both of them, but also have complementary skills and who will challenge each other and I think get the best out of each other, and importantly, get the best out of the team. and hopefully in this moment not only ensure we've got the best chance that we can possibly have of staying up this season, but also start the preparation now for next, because I think it's really important, and I think this is often overlooked. But I think when you stay up on the last day of the season, it takes an awful lot of energy and emotion, and I think often there is a bit of breathing out, and then you start to think about next season after a little bit of a gap. And I think we need to, learning from that, look at how we're already planning for next season now, regardless of which division we find ourselves in. And I think just final point I'd make, just before I perhaps pass the mic to Alex if he wants to add anything, I just would like to say, on behalf of the club, I know we've said it before, but firstly, Ben Strang. I think when Ben joined us as a full-time employee, we were playing, his first game was in 2011, Rushden Diamonds away, and I think we were getting 2,500 fans at the Abbey, and I think our main rivals, as we all remember, were Histon. Obviously, his last game, very different circumstances. We were away at Birmingham, obviously not the best evening, but I think it just shows the progression that we've made under Ben during his time at the club. He had a period away and then he came back, but the club wouldn't be the club it is today if it wasn't for Ben Strang. And I think Ben's one of these individuals in the job that he's in, where you get all the brickbats for the things that don't work out, and perhaps don't get a huge amount often of the credit for the success that comes alongside that. But Ben has did a huge amount for Cambridge United, and will always be welcome back at the club. And I think in terms of Gary, again, I think no one is more disappointed that this didn't work out than Gary. He gave it a huge amount in his time here, and again, I think showed real character, real dignity, and real class in the way he conducted himself at all times at the football club. And again, he will always be somebody who I think we'll all have great affection for, those of us that got to know him. And again, disappointing it didn't work out, but that's football. But hopefully we can look forward now with Neil and Mark. But, sorry, rather a long answer, but it's obviously been quite a lot going on in the last week or so. Alex?
Alex, do you want to add anything?
No, I think my view on the whole thing is it's the evolution of the club. So if you go back, the business side of the club was, to all intents and purposes, a National League side. The football side has not been at a League One level. And I think, as Godric alluded to, the fact that we've gone through this last day of the season 2 years running has meant we've never been able to really grasp hold of it and look at it and look at things from a different perspective and look at what other clubs are doing. So we've fallen behind. We've had to rip the plaster off. It's never nice, but I'm sure come 6, 7, 8, 9 months we'll be in a better position for it. So I don't necessarily think it's a negative thing. I think it's just part of the club growing and developing and trying to be a sustainable League One club.
Thanks, guys. Next question. Okay, I've got two over here. For you first, sir.
Hi there, Stu here. I'm probably not alone in being absolutely gobsmacked when the announcement came, just before the weekend. Really taken aback because it really rankles how Neil Harris didn't say anything to us as a fan base when he left. Because it's not really a difficult thing to do. I mean, when players leave clubs, they'll put a statement on Twitter or something. Wouldn't have been that hard. Didn't quite get it, and I wonder whether he'd have, not said anything had he known he was going to be back here within the year. I feel much better about it now, having seen the press conferences. I think he did sort of front up to some extent there, and I definitely feel better after watching Saturday's display. And if he can do that, another 13, 14 times this season, I'll, build the statue. Has he said anything about why he didn't say a word to us unless I missed it, when he left?
I haven't asked him sort of directly about the exact handling around those sort of 24-hour, 48 hours, when he left. I think everybody understood, I think I've already said, and he said, it was a unique set of circumstances. I think when he joined us, I don't think anyone could have predicted that Millwall would go on an 8-game losing run. He's a club legend at Millwall, and there was a very emotional reason why he felt he had to go back. it was his own decision to leave Millwall. He's been offered, or certainly been in discussion about a number of other jobs, as he said the other day, at clubs certainly of a higher level than we are. But he's chosen this one, which I think in many ways shows the affection he has for the club, the respect he has for the club. He has acknowledged that, yes, in that moment, looking back, there were things that he would have done differently, and that for some people he'll need to work hard to try and earn that trust back if he lost it. But I think it's one of those things where if somebody acknowledges at the beginning, which he did, as you say on day one, that yes, he made mistakes, and there were things that if he had his time again, he'd have done things differently. He's fronted up on that, and I think it's time really to move on and to get behind him and the team. And I think the passion that everybody showed on Saturday, sort of on the pitch, off the pitch, the energy that you could feel in the stadium, it just felt right. And arriving at the ground, you could just feel that actually we were going to put in a performance today. And sometimes it's sort of, it's not a science, but we're going to need that sort of spirit and that sort of real energy and that real sort of united endeavour approach to the rest of the season. And I think Neil will certainly give us that. But yeah, look, it's a very fair question, Stu, and I understand why you're saying it. I hope you sort of feel that Neil has acknowledged it and we can draw a line.
Thank you. Hi. Given that we probably need to win at least 7 games, I'm going to assume, like a lot of people, that we're going to be in a different division next year. So, given that, it's a very opportune sort of timing when it comes to the ground development. And what I mean by that is we are not going to have the finances in that division that we've got in this division. The lack of money that we have anyway, it's going to be worse. Are we, or has Paul Barry got money ring-fenced for the ground development? Is it going to be put off or delayed? Is he going to affect it in any way?
I think it's a fair question. I think Paul and Mark are really committed to doing the project. I think that doesn't matter what division we're in. I think if you look at how good the crowds have been this year, even going back to Exeter, just over 5.5. Arguably, if we were in League 2 and we were at the top of League 2, I think we'd sell out every week, bar the away end. So I don't think that affects it. I think in terms of where we are financially, a lot of our sponsors are tied up on long-term deals. There's 11 players under contract next year. Of those 11, all of them, bar the young pros, have got reductions in wages. So we've made really good decisions for the football club to safeguard against this. It's not just if we were to go down, it's not just an overnight thing. We've planned for this, unfortunately, for the last 2 years. That said, there's 14 games to play. Let's go and win all 14 of them. That's the mindset of everyone in the club. It's a tough feat, but I think we know we've got the right guy in to try and do that. But in terms of the stadium project, we're really close to probably selecting one of 5 designs. So there's 5 design models, there's 5 business plans that sit with those models, and the owners are going to make a final decision on that in the middle of March. But as it stands, I really don't see there being a correlation between League 1, League 2 and the project.
Are you allowed to tell us what the budget is for what you've got aside to build the 2 new stands?
The answer is, at the minute, we don't know what the budget is because we're still waiting for the final costs, but it's a big number.
Just the other point I'd make in terms of the owners and where the club's at is, I mean, they are incredibly ambitious for Cambridge United. They're also realists in terms of, where we are in terms of our financial firepower, if you like, compared to the rest of the league. I mean, I was talking to Alex about this earlier, but I think the average wage for League One bottom half has, over the last 4 years, has gone up 78%. Income has gone up on average 22%. We have one of the lowest budgets certainly a sort of a bottom 5, bottom 6 budget in the league, and we're still some millions away from being anything close to an average budget. But all that said, we can see with the focus on Cambridge by the government and by the ambition that is centred around this city, that there's a real opportunity for us to make sure that we are part of that as the football club, and that we can be, we can start to look forward to the next chapter of Cambridge United as an even more integral part of the city of Cambridge, which is only going to grow and thrive even more than it has. Which I think is why, back to what Alex was saying about the stadium and the decisions that are made by the owners, we see the redevelopment as absolutely critical to that, and it's sort of irrespective of the division. So yes, there's a big number. Yes, the financing is difficult. Yes, of course, if you're Paul and Mark and you're looking at this, you want to make sure that what we're building is not only going to be something that is appropriate for match days, but also gives us the best opportunity in the environment that we're in here of maximising revenue outside of match day. So if you like, all the increased revenue can then be put back into the football side of the business, because after all, that's what this is all about. So it's making sure that the business model is right, because this can be really, really material for the 2030s, 2040s of Cambridge United, because it can hopefully unlock more revenue that can hopefully see the club thrive at a time when the whole city, I think, is going to be right at the centre of some of the national debate.
Thanks very much, guys. Steve, you had a question?
Thanks, evening. I guess that bringing together two of the last two questions, what would be the three things, I guess, that you guys would have learnt over the last 18, 24 months around financial side of the game, but also the playing side and the bit of the merry-go-round that we've been on? I remember sitting here a year ago and Gary saying, he thrives in adversity, I thrive in adversity, and the whole of us are going, oh my God, we've had so much adversity, we don't want any more. Can we put a stop to adversity, please?
I think the landscape has changed in League One almost in the season. So the gap from the top to the bottom is big. It's probably 4x where we are. When I first joined the club, me and Paul spoke about, can we get to a budget, the budget we thought? That budget would have got us, we thought, edge of the playoffs. We're at that budget in a minute. So that shows you how quickly that's moved and how difficult it's suddenly become. We need to increase our non-match day revenues to try and keep up with people. That's really difficult at the moment, what we've got. We're trying to sweat the assets as much as we can do. So F&B on a match day, we're probably capped out. We can't really get it any higher at the moment. Ticketing money, we could go ever so slightly higher, 700-800 maybe. Hopefully that will cap out this season as we get closer to the end. Retail-wise, we've done really well this year. Probably 2.5, if not 3 times what we did 2 years ago. Commercially, we're 9th in the league for commercial income, which is when you look at who we're competing against, they're doing a great job, the commercial team. So we're having to think really quickly on our feet about how we can increase revenue and how we can try and compete. Is it realistic for us to get near the top with the big boys? Probably not at the minute. So we have to think smart. We've got a few things on the horizon that should help with that. So I think the first thing we probably learned is we have to act really, really quick. We have to be well ahead of the curve, and we have to try and find the smallest margins we can do across the whole club to try and compete at this level. So from a business side, that would be the first thing we've learned. From a playing side, yeah, we got it wrong at the beginning in terms of style of football. Did we try to be too expansive, too progressive? Definitely yes. Could we have had an honest conversation with Gary before game 9? Probably should have done. difficult. When it looks good, it's quite entertaining, but it doesn't quite come off. You're always going, maybe nearly we can win this. And then I think it's about the makeup and the profile of the squad. We've tried to go away from a squad that was older, which it has been in the last couple of years. We tried to bring that down, which we have done. We probably took a couple of risks on injury-prone players, but again, we've had to do that to try and get the quality of player through the door at the wages that we could afford. So we probably took a few too many risks, but then on the other hand, Gary Gardner was available for 42 out of 46 games last season. So the fact he's not kicked a ball this year is difficult to really get to, but they would be my two. Godric?
When's he going to kick a ball?
I wouldn't want to give any prediction on that.
It's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks.
I'll leave that to others to talk about squad and injury update. I think it's a good question. I think my three would be, just to echo what Alex said. I think alignment in terms of playing style and squad. I'm not saying that if all our players had been fit, we could probably have had a much better go at the playing style we tried at the beginning of the season with better results. That's in no way to criticise the players. I think the players have been, all in for Gary, they're all in for Neil, and they're giving everything they've got. But I mean, clearly, with injuries, it starts to compound in terms of the amount of game time certain players have to continue to play, and you can't switch people in and out. So I think firstly is alignment. Secondly, and again, it's a bit of an echo, I think on the playing side as well, given all the boats are rising financially and the financial firepower is just of a totally different order, and the amount of money particularly coming, I think, into Leagues 1 and 2 and the whole sort of Wrexham effect, and it's an amazingly positive for the EFL. We have to recognise where we are in the financial food chain and our limitations, which I think puts more of a premium, as Alex was referring to, in terms of the, if you like, the second half of the football review, really looking at how we can do things a bit differently, innovate to get that competitive advantage. So you're getting something that isn't just a purely sort of translation from maybe playing budget into league position, to see if you can find some extra competitive advantage in different ways. And the third, and back to what I was saying earlier, and again, I don't want to sound sort of as though we're sort of drinking the Kool-Aid when we're bottom of League One, but I think we do have to maintain a level of realistic ambition as a football club. I mean, it's amazing how the fans have responded to Cambridge United over the last few years, and the growth of our fan base has been, and the stability of the fan base and the support of the fans has been absolutely something to behold. But I think we can all see that there's even more opportunity with where the city's going for the football club to play a bigger part in the city, not just on match days, but through the foundation and by being a really active part of all the different conversations that are happening across Cambridge. So I think we want to make sure that, eyes on the prize. We're single-mindedly, we're a football club, single-mindedly focused on winning football matches as far as possible. But equally, we want to make sure we can win, on and off the pitch, and that if you like, there's a virtuous circle in that. So I think it's maintaining a level of realistic ambition at the same time.
Okay. Plenty of time left if you're cogitating on a question. Scott's got one.
Thank you very much. Good evening, gentlemen. Just wanted to reiterate Godric's comments on Ben Strang. For me, it left a little bit of a bad taste. I know he got some criticism towards the end, but I think most measured Cambridge United fans could appreciate the work he done over the 2 periods he was here. So, just sort of like to echo, your thoughts on behalf of the fan base. I thought, Ben was certainly a good thing for Cambridge United. So yeah, wish him well thoroughly for the future. And I'm a big Neil Harris fan. I understood the circumstance. I know some fans are disappointed in the way it kind of happened. I think, me personally, looking back, I think what left a bad taste, he took our Bolton game on the Tuesday night, and then within hours, obviously, we saw the news. As I say, if there's a Neil Harris fan club, towards the top end of the queue. I really rate him. Used to watch him play years ago in Cambridge and followed his career there on, and I understood it. He didn't go to Peterborough. He went to Millwall, where he's the leading goal scorer there. And I know he had a relationship with the chairman, who sadly passed away, and then James Berrelston. So I know he went in there to help him out, and as I say, I'm very pleased that he's back, and we've seen the immediate impact he can have on Saturday. Just on this season, I think I speak on behalf of quite a lot of supporters. We got to Gary was obviously given the benefit of the doubt. There was a change in style of play. As Alex said, it was quite flashy and good to watch. Bizarrely, from an attacking point of view, but obviously left us exposed at the back, and it didn't work out. He was given sort of vote of confidence, if you want to call it that, in October, and then obviously the first 9 games was 1 point, and then Christmas there was 5 games and no return. And I think it seemed like it got to the end of that Bristol Rovers game. Gary looked forlorn at the end of that match. Everyone had that down as a must-win game. I think he trudged off, and everyone just seemed to look at each other and thought, well, that's it. He can't go on any sort of further. And with the January window on the horizon, everyone kind of thought, well, we'll hear something Sunday or the Monday. Obviously, we waited to the Tuesday, and it was back in Gary again, and then said about the additional funds. Sort of acknowledged there could have been things done differently. Is there any regret holding on to Gary a little bit longer, or how difficult was that decision to make in hindsight?
I mean, firstly, thank you for your comments about Ben. I mean, I think you're right, Scott. I mean, he will go on to have another do great things in football. He's a high quality guy with lots of talent. Look, I mean, I think when you're down at the bottom and you're losing football matches, which nobody likes, clearly as board owners, you're constantly thinking about, is it the right time to make a change? Should you make a change? Are people still playing for the manager? Does the manager still have, how's his mojo? How's his confidence? Of course, you can always make counterfactual arguments that if you've done something might be different. We took the decision that we would invest in the transfer window, or the owners would put money in up for the transfer window. We would try and get some reinforcements, and we would try and see if we could turn this round with Gary. I think it's fair to say that results in January after that were actually pretty positive in terms of the game at Bolton. We then won at home to Mansfield, I think. Could have got something at Rotherham, played well against Wickham. But yeah, it's a perfectly reasonable point. I mean, football is a game of always a game of opinions. I guess standing back, I think as a group, everyone was trying to make what we thought was in the best interests of the club at that moment. Time will tell whether it was the right or the wrong decision. I mean, if we'd made change then, would we be in the position we're in today in terms of who we've got through the door? I don't know. You just don't know. So I mean, it's a reasonable question to ask. I mean, we are what we are, and we just got to attack the rest of the season and give it our absolute best shot and try and stay in the league. But I guess my main point is that at no point has this been a passive decision by us collectively. It's been an active decision looking at a range of different factors, whether it's data, injury circumstances, performances, and it's been a conscious decision to stick with Gary rather than just letting this sort of. There's been no sort of drift in terms of discussion. It's been something that people have been discussing a huge amount. I'm sure there's different views at different times about what we might have done. Alex, I think you talked a bit about this at the time. Anything you want to add?
No, I suppose football's football. If the ball doesn't come off of Zeno's shin at Bolton and Stokesy scores the penalty against Wickham, you're probably all sitting here going, oh, what a great decision to trust Gary. So it's fine margins, and there's lots of other circumstances when those decisions are being made that not always everyone's aware of, and I think sometimes it takes balls to stay at the table and stick, and sometimes you have to twist, and sometimes clubs twist too early too often. I don't think we get Mark, and I don't think we get Neil if we'd have twisted earlier. So it's funny how life works out. Let's just hope it's the right decision and we stay up.
Terry.
Hello. This season we've had the South Stand has been for families of Cambridge fans and the away fans in the South Habin. Many times the South Habin's been full, but there have been empty seats in the South Stand. So has that been a success financially? Or will it stay like that for next season, or will you change it?
Yeah, so I think overall a good success. So on a Saturday, we've averaged about 1,000 mark in there, midweek less, naturally. This Saturday just gone, the revenue from tickets in the south was higher than the North Habin and the NRE, which goes to show that. I think we're seeing more families come through, we're seeing more children coming to games, the feedback we're having is really positive. And then in terms of the maths on moving away fans into the South Habin, so that costed about 50,000 loss of income, which we know, we're okay with that. We've already worked and factored that in. The only way we will grow and develop the fan base is to give people a better experience, and that was certainly lacking last season for families.
And I think just to reiterate, I mean, that's very much the decision from the owners to basically invest in the future and to try and grow the fan base from the sort of the ground up, as it were. So yeah, I think we're very pleased with how it's gone, actually.
I've got a question from a gentleman here.
Hi, David Hornby. Yeah, I've got a question going back to the bench strength. Sorry if it's getting a bit boring, but well, the one thing we as fans didn't hear was what Ben Strain was doing. Now that may seem a strange thing to say, but which then made it easy to criticise with the players coming in with injuries, etc., etc. I would like to hear more from Mark Bonner as director of football than we did Ben Strang as sports director.
It's a good, a very good question. Very good question. I think you've already seen with Mark doing the press conference with Neil last week, a desire to communicate more about what the role entails. You know, the 5 pillars that he talked about. You know, the sort of performance and coaching, recruitment, sports science analysis, academy and facilities. I think this is day 5 now of this sort of new regime, as it were, with Neil and Mark. We don't know exactly what that means in terms of press conferences and the different weighting of communication, but I think you can take it as read that you'll be hearing a lot more from Mark. Whether that is a, you know, I wouldn't want to sort of say at this point it's going to be every month or he's going to be doing, you know, X, Y, Z, but yeah, I think we recognise there's that we can only benefit collectively by being a bit more transparent, both in explaining, I think, what the role is, because I think it's, you know, for understandable reasons, perhaps it's been too defined by recruitment, where actually there's an awful lot more to it than that. But that we do need to explain it, and also I think just probably take fans with us a little bit more on that side. And I should also say, I think if we were 2 weeks further on, then clearly Neil and Mark would probably be here tonight. So it's just again a circumstance of timing that they're not. So
Thanks. I've got a question from the gentleman at the back here.
Frank Pearson, CFU Secretary. First, an observation. We lost one of our owners to St Johnstone and they're doing worse than us. But my question is this. There are many reasons why, or given, when a manager is sacked. But can I remind you, one of the reasons, or one of the statements when Mark Bonner was sacked, was because we were told we didn't want to behave as we did in the previous season and go to the last match of the season. Well, Gary Monk went to the last match of the season, so I thought in that situation he had failed. although I do acknowledge that he did a wonderful 0-0 draw at Port Vale, and it would have kept us up whatever happened. And that obviously encouraged you to give him a new contract. But my question is this, not just with Gary Monk, but with some of the players that were given 3-year contracts, why did you do longer contracts for players and Gary Monk, and has that worked? Was that a success?
I think with Gary, everyone would have loved him to get the job done a lot quicker. Certainly a few people at the club would have had less wrinkles and less grey hair. We didn't. I think you then have to give him the opportunity to try and build his squad and try and do what he was going to do. And he can only do that with the players he can rotate in the squad, those out of contract. He tried to do that as best as he can. I think in terms of any manager's contract, it doesn't really matter about the length. All that really matters is what's the termination period or what's the buyout. The rest of it's almost null and void. The piece on the player contract is that where we've seen more money come into the league, we've seen the demands for players increase, not just financially, but in terms of longevity of contract. So where before the club may have offered 1+1, so 1 year and then a year option subject to the club, or 2+1, the market is now demanding longer contracts. Certainly 2 years, maybe in some cases 3. If a player's under 30, maybe 28, it's definitely 3, because they're going to try and get the best deal possible. There's pluses and minuses for that. If you've got an asset, it allows you to keep them, increase the value and sell them. And if you've got a player that's not performing, then obviously you're going to be stuck with them. So I think it's just the nature of where the game is going. We always make sure there's relegation clauses in there to try and protect ourselves, but it's a very, very competitive market, not just in the league we're in, but if you look at the clubs below us and the money they're offering. Previously, in seasons gone by, maybe 5-10 years ago, you were only ever worried about teams in your division. Now we're worried essentially about teams in our division and probably the next 8 below us in League Two.
And just to reiterate, really, just one of the things I said earlier about finance. I mean, we've seen, to Alex's point, as I said earlier, 78% over 4 years increase in player wages at our level. So if to be competitive, sometimes you've got to adjust in terms of the level of contract that you're offering to get the players that you might want to get. I think in the summer we had 2 instances of players that were all set to sign, and actually were coming in to do some of the last bits of the signing process, as it were, media, medical, etc., and they just carried on going, signed somewhere else, on the day. We heard from the agent that they were going to come and sign for us, but actually they've been offered more money and gone somewhere else. So we're always, we know where we are in the food chain, so we know we've got to be prudent, but also we know that we've got to compete, and I think that has meant in some instances offering players longer contracts as a way of attracting them to the club. But I should say, I mean, again, said in terms of Ben Strang and Gary, both great servants at the football club, but I think it's only worth saying here on behalf of everybody, really. I count myself as a fan, but again, a massive thank you to Paul Barry and Mark Green, because I mean we're going to be posting our annual accounts, I think, in the next couple of weeks. I mean, they will show that the loss in the 23-24 season was £2.5 million, which they've had to meet, which is significantly higher than previous losses at a time when all the budgets are going up around us, and we're trying to sort of stay competitive. And I think the loss for this season is going to be even larger than that. So, we really all do owe them a huge debt of gratitude, which I know you all know and you all feel it, but I think it's just worth putting on the record.
Thanks, guys. We've got about 10 minutes left. Who's got the next question? Steve, another one?
Different subject.
Good.
For fear of sending everybody to sleep, can you give us a quick overview of how you see the football regulation bill progressing and the effects that it might or might not have on the club?
I think the the important. I was part of the fan-led review advisory panel, and I think that for me it was always sort of two sides of the coin. I think if you want more money to flow down into the lower leagues from the Premier League, and I think there's a strong case for that. You've got to make sure that on the other side of the balance sheet, that the clubs are being run in as effective way as possible with proper financial controls. But also I think that you try and have as much control at the same time as ensuring that there is competition on player wages. Because I mean, obviously, CFU was born out of the ITV digital era. I'm a founder member of CFU at the time, and obviously all that money came washing into the game at our level. It was all just spent on wages. The contract went sort of pop, and we were left with with the circumstance that we all lived through in terms of the stadium relegation, going out the league, dark times. So I think we've got to make sure that through football regulation that there is proper financial control, hopefully a fairer settlement, but also proper regulation to ensure that the right people get involved with football, and that there are the protections that are given to fans, both in terms of moving stadia, changing colours, things that really matter to fans. The bill's currently going through Parliament at the moment. I think they're going through the process of appointing the first chair, which I think is a pretty key appointment to, and we'll see where that comes out. But I think it's a really important moment for football, actually. And Alex, you've obviously, from the EFL perspective, seen some of the changes that are going on in terms of trying to put more control over wages.
Yeah, so in the minute we operate on something called SCMP, which is essentially salary cap management protocol. So in the current situation, we can spend 60% of our income on player wages. That's going to change slightly next year. There's a move between 50 to 60%, and there'll be a reduction of the amount of money we can bring in from equity, which will reduce that down in terms of what can be spent. But essentially, the clubs that operate in the best manner and maximise their commercial income streams will be able to spend the most on players. So that will be good for us. We'll be in a really good position. We've got good governance here. We've got good protocols in place anywhere. It will be some of the other clubs that will suffer, but over time it should give a better playing field for everybody.
Anybody else with a question? Scott, another one?
Cheers. Just a quick one to Alex. Obviously we all hope we can pull it off this season. It's a tough ask, but you're all hopeful. But if worst case scenario we do go down, is the budget looking competitive? Obviously you're looking at that already. Do we expect to have a competitive budget to make an assault on a return to League One?
Yeah, so the budget's been agreed for next year in terms of if we were to go down. That's a conversation we had with Neil last week. It's good. It won't be the top, but it won't be too far off that at the moment. But that said, we don't know who's in the league next year, and we don't know what foreign owners are about to buy a club and end up in that league. So at the minute, it's a reasonable budget, but who knows? Let's see where we are come the end of the season.
Any more? At the back? And probably one, maybe two afterwards.
Evening, it's Paul. A question for Alex. Could you give us a timeline update of where we are with the redevelopment and how it's going to progress over the next year or two, please?
Yeah, so originally we started off with one design. So that design was increased to about 11,500. We've always wanted to get to 12, but whatever we do, we just can't seem to get to that magic number for all kinds of reasons. At the moment, we're looking at NRE, which is a 4,000 terrace. That concourse would hold 2,000 people. That's the current legislation, so that's a big concourse. And the Habit at the minute will probably be somewhere around 3,000 to 3,500 seats. The Habit is the stand that's probably going to change the most as we go along this journey. And really, it's a balancing act between stand capacity and then hospitality and non-match day facilities. So there's one model that's got 600 hospitality non-match day spaces, and then there's another model at the end of the scale that's probably got 400. We've got 4 business plans looking at return on investment for all 4 models, 4 sets of costings. We reviewed that about 3 weeks ago with the owners, and they've actually asked for a 5th model now, which is being looked at, and we should hopefully get to the middle of March and make our selection. One of the big things we're looking at the minute is sequencing. So how can we build this as quickly as possible to reduce the costs? There becomes some operational challenges. So we're looking at potentially taking the Habin down and the NRE at the same time. So that would leave us with about 4,300 spaces operational. We'd need to be at 5,000 to play games here. So there would be a temporary structure that would go in behind the NRE. We would probably move the home fans to the south stand and the main stand and use the temporary NRE for the away fans. That's just to ensure you get as many home fans in as possible. And that's probably where we've got to. I think in terms of sort of the timescale. Godric, do you want to pick up on that piece? No.
Where would it start, Alex, then, if you go through that process?
I think the first timescale is planning will take 6 to 8 months. We know with planning there's going to be some hurdles.
Will there be any standing plan in any of the stands?
So the NRE at the minute will be 4,000 terrace standing spaces, which we will be able to retrofit to safe standing if we needed to.
A good question about timing. The only reason I don't want to sort of give any timing sort of publicly at this point is because I think we do want to make sure that when we go out and speak to fans about timescales that they're realistic and that we're actually factoring in, you know, the different cycles of the season, because obviously that's quite material in terms of how much work you can get done, you know, both during the season but also in the summer. So I think we're very mindful of that. But you know, as Alex says, we hope that the club will be able to make some decisions on the way forward relatively soon, and then to go out to the fan base and explain the sequencing, the timescale, and what this will look like. But yes, we want to do this as quickly as possible, consistent with getting it right.
I've given a question in the spirit of Her Game 2, which was extremely successful on Saturday, I think. I'm sure everybody agrees who was at the game. And the question is there a plan to have a female mascot to accompany Marvin on match days?
Someone's leaked something. Yeah, so we are imminently, i.e. probably tomorrow, we are going to invite junior U's to come forward with some designs for a female companion for Marvin. Initially we're just looking for some designs, and then I think there'll be a naming process, but Marvin may have a friend next season.
Fantastic news for Moose everywhere. We've got just coming up to 8:30, so probably got time for one more question if there is one. Does anybody want to have the last word? Or are you all questioned out?
Quickly.
Just a quick one over there, Stu. Did you want one as well? Okay, I'll come to you first and then you, Stu, and then we'll wind it up.
Hi, I just want to ask the question about the assistant coaches. So you stuck with Barry Core and the other guys for the last three managers. Do you think that's the right decision?
I think it's given us stability over this period. I mean, clearly, you know, as Neil and Bond said when they did their press conference, you know, we're sort of all in with the group we've got here now to the end of the season, and we're all going to sort of give it everything we can to try and stay up. I think we've got some very talented people at the football club. I think there's no shortage of effort, that's for sure. I mean, I'm down at the training ground every other week if I can get down there, and certainly everybody has been incredibly together. They remain incredibly together. Everyone is completely committed. let's just hope that we can get the results that we need to keep ourselves in League One next season.
Alex, anything?
Last question, please.
Last question. It's last question time. Stu, you have the last question.
Thank you. Alex, I saw you at the Footnotes series, the tie-up with the university, and it's really, really good. And Henry Winter, well-known journalist, is coming here, I think, for the next one. That's already sold out. I just wondered if is there how much to be gained from progressing further with links to the university, or is it the case that university students might be in the city for 3 years, they might come along once or twice, and then they'll go off back to where their homes are? And is there more that can be done with the university?
I think we are definitely going to do more. I think it's been about, it's going to be a partnership that will take a bit of time, I think. We've spoken about how we can maximise it. Naturally, there are lots of programmes underway at the minute with the foundation, volunteering. There's a fantastic institution on our doorstep with a wealth of knowledge. We just need to find the right way in which we can partner with them on the right projects. So Footnotes has been really good. 4 different writers from the world of football have been coming to do events. The last one is in a few weeks' time. Henry Winter, Chief Editor Football for the Times and the Telegraph. He's going to be here. It's been great for our media team to be able to come and speak with some of those individuals and gain further knowledge. We're working on some research projects, and then equally on the flip of that, with ARU, Anglia-Ruskin University, we've been doing a lot with their sports students. So sports science, interns, something Bonds will definitely be picking up is how can we utilise those students in some of the areas around data, analysis, scouting, recruitment. But I think we've got a great footprint of education in the city, and we shouldn't be afraid to shy away from it. I think last Saturday, as we were watching the game, a whole host of students came in even on a Saturday. We're doing £10 student night every Tuesday. We know that they're a transient group. They're not going to be here for every game, but I think there's a way in which we can work with them and they can play their part.
Thank you very much.
And just to reiterate, I mean, I think through the collective efforts of a lot of people, at both universities, we're now better placed than we've ever been to really deepen those relationships and try and get the most out of them. So I think there's an open door. We've just got to, I think, work out how we can engage most effectively on both sides. But without question, I think the university are wanting to do a lot more within the city in a way that they haven't done before. And we've already seen we've got a great partnership with ARU that will, I think, only go from strength to strength. So I think there's an awful lot of upside there, and I think we just need to work out how we move forward as quickly as we can on both sides.
Thank you all for your questions tonight. It's been a really interesting hour or so of discussion. And thank you also, of course, to our guests, Alex Tunbridge and Godric Smith. Can I ask you to show your appreciation for Alex and Godric?
Right, thank you very much. I think that was a particularly good session, perhaps not quite as emotive as last year, but thanks, Mike. I think it's always interesting to hear their views and to have the chance to put questions, and I'm sure next time with Neil or Mark, and hopefully some better results, we can put some of those history things behind us about changes, and we'll be in a much better place in a year's time on the field. But I'm really confident about the place off the field. I think that the club is running extremely well, and sure we make mistakes, but I think that the openness most of the time is of huge benefit to us as a fan base, and Alex in particular, but the board, I think, deserve an awful lot of credit, and they won't get it right all the time, and they deserve to be held to account by us. So thanks for your questions. Just like to say thank you to the Supporters Club for allowing us here tonight. He's not listening. And welcome to the 25th CFU Agm. We will be marking the occasion in due course, but it was referred to earlier. I think the place that we're in today, for those of you who were here 25 years ago, I wasn't. obviously it's a much healthier place to be. Some of us were, weren't we, Terry?
Yes.
Yeah. So we are going to go through the agenda. We have some points that we have to cover. So if you can flick through. Okay, we're going to do it this way, right. Okay, so we have apologies of absence from Emma, Chris and Andrew. And Ben. Thank you. We do have one from Ben as well. You're quite right. Glad to hear. Minutes from last year's meeting. We've had no comments, alterations or amends. So I'm going to propose that we accept last year's. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Terry. And a quick vote to, whatever you do to the minutes, authorise them, accept them. All those in favour, thank you. Anybody against? Good.
Not allowed to, but I'd say.
So I'm now Gina. I know easy mistake to make. I am going to read her words. I might embellish slightly in places. So this is Gina's CFU annual report. It's our chance to tell you a few things that we've been involved with since last year. I think we do a reasonably good job of publicising them, but I'm sure we can do better. Actually, before I start, at the end, I'm going to do a little piece on how we are looking at future direction. And the final slide has got a question on it, which says, what else can we be doing? So I'm giving you 30 minutes, 40 minutes notice to give some thought to what else you would like to see CFU doing before we get there. So for the second year in a row, we've been helping the British Heart Foundation walk in memory of Robert Osborne. You'd have seen some of that. I think it was a very, very beautiful sunny day this year, wasn't it, Leanne? It was gorgeous. But still managed to trudge on and raise some money, so well done to those of you who braved the weather. Towards the end of last season, we approached the club for asking for alternative payment plans to help fans purchase season tickets. Unfortunately, it was too late, and I do understand the logistics of that, as they'd already put it all into place, but we will be having that conversation again. So this is looking at whether there are any part payments that you can make over the course of 2 or 3 staged payments during the season. So we will certainly be raising that again. There was no issues from the club as a matter of principle, it was purely the practicalities. Following last season's issues at Stevenage, CFU have been in contact with the police liaison officer who was advised on who to contact regarding complaints and putting the supporters in touch with solicitors. And unfortunately, we have had 1 or 2 cases where that has been a relevant thing this year. And it's particularly appropriate for the youngsters on the CFU away travel when things, whether it's their doing or not, and in a lot of cases it's not, are getting into trouble. So we're acting as a liaison. We're still planning on running some sessions for some of the younger members of the supporter base to advise them upon particularly what will happen around football banning orders, and I know a lot of work's being done on that through the trust as well. CFU cabin's been relocated, and I think everybody now hopefully has found us, slightly tucked away, but and we're still having a steady stream of visitors, some regulars like myself, making sure we make use of it, providing good service. We arranged a raffle for ex-player Jordan Patrick, who suffered a brain injury in a fall, with a signed shirt and 2 fans donating memorabilia, sold on eBay, raising £500. I think quite importantly, we purchased a wheelchair for the mobility people who require extra mobility on match day, to be by volunteers to assist the supporters. And I think that's it. Yeah. So and we're hoping to do some form of event to mark our 25th anniversary later in the year. But to everybody on the board, to all of you, thank you for your support again. I think that we'll talk a little bit about at the end. I think it's with organisations, representative organisations such as CFU, that clubs can improve, we can improve, and I think especially as the Football Governance Bill comes through, there will be different roles for us all to play anyway. It's a couple of special mentions from Gina to Frank, sitting to my left, my beautiful assistant for the evening, and Terry for all the work you guys do in keeping us above board and legal. You have to minute this, Frank. I'm thanking you. You have to. Thank you. Make sure you write that down. We'll check the minutes. But also what everybody does on match day, and I know that as CFU board members, many of them, I won't include myself in this, to have voluntary roles along with many other people, of course, on match day. And I think it's a lot of that keeps clubs going and keeps the fan base engaged. So this is from me, not from Gina. Thank you, all of you who get involved doing that. Before I move on, are there any questions that anybody has about the overview? Nope. Great. Next point.
Thank you so much. Okay, membership. We're currently 339. For those who remember, last year was 348, so we've lost a few people. Probably the biggest thing is that we've only got 4 young adults. It would be really good if we could get some more younger people on, and that is going to be one of the things that hopefully will come out of Steve's strategic review, that we can try and target and attract younger people. Membership, and those whose membership have lapsed should get the regular emails from me. They last for 3 years until they drop off the list. Sometimes the emails get a little bit big. The latest one I sent out last week, I thought that was a bit big, but I looked to see what I could remove and thought, well, actually, I think all the things have to stay in it. But that's my thought. So if you think they're too big, let me know and I'll try and remove some of the stuff. And if there's anything else that you think you might like to see, then again, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Moving on to the CFU rules. Last year at the AGM, we proposed a new set of rules and you agreed to it. And so those rules were submitted to the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, and they were approved on the 15th of July. And so we've got a copy on our website, which is somewhat less blurry than that. Moving on to merchandise, we've got a number of items available in our online shop, and there are some samples to look at over there. Mugs and things like that. We aim to produce items that we think will appeal to fans, make a bit of profit for CFU, but not compete with anything that the club produces. Things like the I Was There When Brophy scored mugs and T-shirts made us a few bob, and they were quite sought after. The Love United Hope Borough range of mugs, coasters and pin badges are proving quite popular. So if you want to buy any of those, then we've got some there, or you can pre-order things that we don't actually have any stock of. Most of the items are made to order by a manufacturer, or in the case of coasters, they're made by Leanne, sitting over there, which means that we minimise our upfront costs. So the only thing that we did spend out was on the pin badges, because they had a minimum order. So, and we're pretty close to covering our costs already, so we should make a few pounds out of that. Where possible, I try and make it so that CFU members get a discount. So if you want a coaster, anybody else gets them for £5, but you can get them for £4, the same as with the pin badges, and the mugs at £8, you can have for £7. What else? And also sometimes I can put a special code in the email that I send out. So if you've seen that and have a go with that, that should work. If there's anything you want, for example, a CFU sweatshirt in a different colour, please let me know. And I'll see if we can get it. Somebody a while ago recommended a manufacturer of very nice beach towels. So I contacted them. Unfortunately, their minimum order was 1,000, and I didn't really want to shell out that much money. I don't know how much space 1,000 beach towels take up, but it would be a lot of garage space. Thank you for listening, and if you've got any questions, you can ask me or see me after. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. I think some great stuff, and as Terry said, there's some merchandise on the table here tonight. So before you go, if you want anything, we've now got the highlight of the evening. We've got Paul's financial report. So if you love a spreadsheet.
No spreadsheet, just words. So financial summary for year ending 31st of August 2024. Main income generated for FY24 was member subscription, which is £4,569. Away coach income, £44,674. Lotteries subscriptions, £54,187. And a total income, for the year was £106,747, which was slightly up on the previous year of FY23, by £8,905. Main expenditure incurred during FY24 was away coach expenditure and expenses, 45,413. Lottery prize payouts, 27,400, and donations and equipment bought for the football club and various other items, £31,397. Details of which are probably covered by the lottery report. Total expenditure for last year was £109,538, which was down by 34,891. This is mostly due to the fact that the previous financial year we shelled out £30,000 towards the bar area behind the NRE, so that's why there was a big difference. This generated an overall loss for the year of £2,791. So this small amount, comparatively small amount on trading, is probably where we probably need to be, seeing as we're a not-for-profit organisation. Balance sheet summary. We finished the year with cash at bank of £97,000. Was roughly £3,500 of money held in advance for lottery and CFU subscriptions. Our net assets for the FY24 closed at £95,000, which was £3,000 down on last year. In summary, CFU still continue to financially sustain itself as a not-for-profit organisation, providing vital support for supporters in the form of organised away travel, equipment and support for the club, outside organisation and other outside organisations, while still remaining solvent and transparent in its endeavours. I guess now I'll read the examiner's declaration. Yep. It is hereby resolved that, subject to the provision of Section 4A of the 1968 Friendly and Industrial Accounts covering the current financial year ending 31st of August 24, when they are prepared to the AGM, the members of the Society agree that the accounts for the following AGM do not require a full audit, provided that an independent examination is carried out in place of a full audit. The independent examination is carried out in line with best practice, and a report from the independent examiner is included within the accounts and circulated to members. I think we have to agree that. Anybody?
We need formal acceptance.
All those in favour?
All those in favour? All those against? Good. I think that's passed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, Mr. Treasurer. I think that the one thing that we don't do very well is probably talk very much about where we've spent our money. So I think that's one thing we will be looking to do a bit more of. And as you can see, there's some sizable-ish sums that get paid out from time to time, mostly from income generated by the lottery, but that's absolutely fine. I'm now Gina again. I'm now Gina, coach hostess. Oh no, sorry, I missed a bit. I beg your pardon. Thank you. People keeping me in order. Election of Trust Board. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I was getting carried away. So we have vacancies and members standing down but willing to stand again. So Anushka Wright and Terry Wilby's tenure comes to an end, but they are both willing to stand again. And we have one potential new member. Chris, do you want to stand up and wave at everybody? Chris Neal, who most of you will know, is proposed to join us. So as we have more potential spaces available and we have nominees, we're going to do one general vote for acceptance of those 3 people to stand. All those in favour? Anybody dare to put their hand up as being against? And any abstentions?
Yeah. We should say
Oh, I thought you said yes.
that Chris Neild was proposed by Georgina Heath and seconded by Terry Wilby, but that shouldn't go to his disadvantage.
Thank you for the completeness, Mr. Secretary. Good. Thank you. Welcome, Chris. Members, continuing is, I'm not going to read them all out. You can see it if I move to this side. You can see the members continuing, and we have one resignation of Connor during the year, who was the rep from Cambridge Aces.
And Alex.
Oh, sorry, and Alex. Yes, Alex is on the members continuing on this list. That's right. And Frank will continue as our erstwhile and very efficient CFU secretary, keeping us all in order.
Although I haven't been asked, but I will.
That was not an accident. Right, I'm now Gina. So we have run coaches to every away game this season, every league game plus 2 cup matches at Bromley and Woking. We have 4 regular and ongoing sponsors to enable us to keep the cost of the away travel down. A lot of it is provided for our younger fans who, first of all, may struggle to get there, and with the cost of train travel, they might struggle to be able to afford to get somewhere, but they also thoroughly enjoy the away day, and I think it's a brilliant way for our younger fans to feel part of the community when they're travelling, to have some degree of control. Is that an okay? Guidance and advice, and maybe control, and maybe keep them off the booze for a certain length of time anyway. So I think it's something we're hugely committed to. We managed to do it pretty much at break even. Hello. Any better? There we go. We do it pretty much at break even, but that is only possible because of the 4 groups who sponsor it, which are East Sussex U's, Worcester U's, the International Sports Convention, and contributions from the CUFC lottery that allow us to keep those prices at a sensible level. Obviously, there's been a couple of hiccups along the way. For last season, when we had to run the Stevenage coach twice, but we managed to get through the whole of the season last season at break even. We've had a couple of changes with pick-up at Marshalls along on Newmarket, further out on Newmarket Road, who do it for nothing and make one of their car parks available for us to do the pick-up and drop-off, which makes it a damn sight easier for everybody, about people parking their cars as well, and making it a much more pleasurable experience, I think, for everybody. We've put on earlier coaches and later coaches to the same ground, to take account of the strikes and engineering works that have obviously been ongoing a lot on the trains, making it more difficult for people to get to places. And as Gina points out, we take roughly 10% of the away support goes on the organised transport, which I think is great. We're using Grays of Ely, which is the official company that supplies the club, the coaches as well for the playing staff. Been very flexible and understanding, changing sizes of buses when we need them, when we needed to. Didn't charge us for the postponed trip to Blackpool, despite the fact that you made it to Brampton Hut by the time that I found out it was charged, but they've waived all of those costs. So I think all of that helps enormously, and I do think it's an incredibly valuable thing that Gina in particular, but everybody who's involved in getting that away travel organised. And if anybody else wants to get involved in helping maintain that, costs are only going up. For some of the games we have extremely high costs and lowish demand. Obviously the further away it is, and we lose money, and we try to make a bit of money on the more local games where we've got higher demand and smaller costs. So, on behalf of all of us, Gina, thank you. I think it's a fab thing.
Question to Gina. Why Grays of Ely, when we're told every Saturday afternoon that we have an official A2B preferred, don't they?
Is they taxis only? Is that?
Oh no, A2B do coaches.
Do they?
Oh yes.
Man, you can answer it.
Not our company. Nah, not our company though. Must be, there's a couple of A to Bs, I think.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Yes. And my local bus service in Royston's run by A2B.
Right, yeah, it must be a different one then.
Different A to B.
Different A to
Different A to different
Quite,
B.
quite a common name, as you can imagine.
Really? Yeah. Thank you. Any questions on the way travel? Any suggestions, ideas? No? Great, thank you. Carl, talk about the lottery. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone.
Oh.
I think everyone knows who I am, but yeah, Carl Badcock if you don't. I've written a report, so it's available on the website after this, so see you later. Yeah.
Promise.
So, like, the year just gone by has been a really productive year again for us, and we're really appreciative to Alex Tunbridge, who supports us all the way through. He supplies the prizes which are on the Money Can't Buy prizes on a Wednesday, so it's really good. We've got two aims of the lottery, as you're probably aware. One is to enhance the fans' experience at the Abbey. The second one is to support local charitable and community projects. We run 3 weekly draws, as per the put up there, during the football season only because there aren't any games for people to do the match ball experience, that sort of thing on a Wednesday. So it provides 6 fantastic opportunities each week for members to win something and be rewarded for their support. Things which we've achieved throughout the last year, and it's got to be said that 47.5% goes into the what we call a distribution fund of the money which you pay, so it's £2 a week. So we've given £600 for supporting the away travel, which was sort of mentioned earlier. We've also paid £10 contribution towards the South Stand to make it family centric for all the artwork and the new eatery going in there. We also paid for 2 medical beds, which cost us about £1,600. Yeah. Have you fallen over as well? No. We also paid for a defibrillator to go in the medical centre, because believe it or not, the ones in there were loaned and brought in by the St John's ambulance people. So at least we've got our own in there now. DSLO, the Disabilities Supported Liaison Officer, we supported Lorraine by buying accessibility provisions, which was ponchos, blankets, umbrellas, wheelchair umbrellas and mounts. That's another £400 there. And as I mentioned earlier on, along with the £10 we paid for the new eatery in the South Stand, we also paid for the artwork and props, which was another basically £9. So in the last 12 months, we've paid out nearly £23 to the club for supporting activities, which means that money is still available then for them to play on a playing budget to keep the club going rather than paying for this sort of thing. Charitable wise, 2.5% of the weekly takings we put to one side to pay for things there. We made a donation to the Robert Osborne British Heart Foundation walk of £100. We paid at Christmas time Jimmy's Night Shelter, we gave £200 donation to. We gave another £200 to Winter Comfort, and we also sponsored Ian Dyer's Inspirational Young Stars. That was £750 for the table. So that paid for 2 awardees and their families to have a meal and be entertained for the evening. So charitable contributions we made was £1,250 last year. So as that's our aim, one of our big aims, that was a grand total of just over £22 we paid out. Winners, again, is 47.5% of what people pay in. We had 7 big winners of the Abbey Accumulator last year. So they won the big prize, as it were, in excess of £500. We also celebrated the 10th anniversary playoff win and our EFL return. We had 5 £200 winners. So in total last year, with the must-win Monday, 4 lots of £100 winners on a Monday, we paid out over 27 grand. Where else we go? Yeah, so expenses is we set aside 2.5%. There's an annual website hosting charge from our sponsors, Postscript, which was £234. We also pay a Cambridge City Council for our small lotteries licence registration, £20 a year, and then the rest is minimal operating. There's a little bit of postage, not a lot these days, because most people pay direct debit. There's a few PayPal fees, and that's it. Membership, we're currently at 563. We gained a member today actually, but we're plus 39 on last year, which is really good because the current economic climate means a lot of people are actually dropping out as well. And as we all know, we've had a few people sadly passed away who've been members. Some of the families have taken on their membership and kept it going, which is a nice touch. So we're still growing, not as quickly as maybe we'd like, because if we grow more members, then lots of we get bigger prizes and lots of build up more funds. Bank balance, we're self-sufficient. There's no problem. There's no draw on CFU monies or anything else. We've got 40 grand in the bank at the moment. We've got 18 grand set aside for prize fund, the cost funds, which is obviously our small expenses, is currently sitting at nearly 2.5 grand. Distribution funds, Alex wants to talk about the next big project to be done in the summer. We've currently got 18 grand sitting in there. And the charitable funds, we've got £1,500 sitting in there. Our monthly turnover is nearly 5 grand, and it equates to about 58 grand a year. And I say every 100 members equals 5,200 extra we have in the distribution funds each year. Yeah, prize draw, so as mentioned, it's on the pull up there anyway. Must win Monday has 4 lots of £100 for winners. On the Wednesdays, the first Wednesday of the month, yeah, you've won, Wiz. The first Wednesday of the month's a signed shirt. The third Wednesday of the month's 2 hospitality tickets, and every other Wednesday in the month is then the match ball presentation, which is enjoyed by a lot of people. You've probably seen, if the winners don't want that star and role to come on the pitch side, they get a bit nervous or whatever, then we can donate it to a charity, and we've had quite a few charitable cases and people up there who've enjoyed it as well. Currently, on the Abbey Accumulator, we're currently sitting at £950. It goes up £50 a month until 1, and someone will win it when it gets to 2.5 grand. So as I mentioned, the cost of it, there's £2 a week. It works out £8.67 a month, just because there's 52 weeks in the year, not 48. People can pay by standing order, direct debit, PayPal, credit card, cash cheque, however they like really. We've got our own bank account, and we've got our own PayPal account, which is all separate to CFU as well. Registration, I mentioned we're registered with Cambridge City Council. We've got Camelot registration number. Developments, I think we've mentioned that. So yeah, when we exceed 610 members, we'll have a 5th must-win Monday prize as well. So more members, the more chances people have got of winning as well. And it's a really good chance of winning. There's about a 1 in 167 chance of winning. So please help spread the word. There's some business cards there if you'd like to join up, or you can scan the QR code up there. We've got a website like I mentioned. So thank you very much for listening.
I think it brings so much good. I just think we need to tell more people about it. And then that will bring more people in and allow us to do more good, because I think it is a fantastic thing. Right, this is completely winging it now, because Andrew's not here, and I'm afraid I haven't looked at his report. So between us, we're going to blag our way through this, aren't we? So, Shadow Board's been in existence for a couple of years or so. Obviously, part of the football regulation bill that goes through will have some effect on what a Shadow Board does, but until that time we continue. I think it's still we must have been one of the first clubs to have a formal official Shadow Board in place, as it was something that the ownership and the board were very keen to get involved with. So again, forgive me if we're all of us are kind of reading as we go here, but if anybody from the committee has got anything to add, please do. So there's a question mark on point 3. For those of you who can't see, it says no need for golden share. This was one of the things that was muted as very possibly something that will come out of the Football Regulation Act if it goes through. But I think it's something, if you keep up with the various changes, and I'm ashamed to say that I live in Saffron Walden, and therefore my local MP has come out recently saying that she's the leader of the Conservatives now, saying that she actually doesn't see any need for the football regulation bill. So we're not at the end of the road yet. But anyway, this need for a golden share is probably going to go away. But we are on it and being very aware that the golden share is a great protection for the fans. And if it is not going to be in place, then what else can be done in its place to ensure that if Paul Barry decides that he's going to become a drug addict and start going completely bonkers and decides to sell the Abbey and changes to playing pink or whatever it might be, that we have some degree of comeback on it. I'm not going to mention the word in the next one because it solicits emotional reactions, but the whole process around club branding, the board have been involved in, not in necessarily from a personal point of view, but from a process point of view, to ensure that the consultation process was deemed to be sensible and actually hearing what people had to say and not presenting fait accomplis. People may differ in their opinions whether that was achieved or not, but and it is meeting regularly with representatives from the different fan groups to ensure that all points are heard. I think that may change as we go through the football governance bill, but again, we'll come back to it. I think one thing that we would all agree is that we're probably not very aware of what happens at Shadow Board, what its purpose is. There might be a little bit of reason for that because maybe its purpose is changing, but I think there is a commitment to make sure that it is more public and more transparent in its view, and that people can have some input into it via whatever method is appropriate. The minutes are all available, but minutes are minutes, and they don't always tell you the interesting part of the conversation that happened before somebody wrote something down. That's probably about it for that, isn't there? Anybody, anything to add on Shadow Board, either if there are some members in this room, I believe. Anybody got any questions about Shadow Board? Or potential changes to it?
How many members on the Shadow Board?
I think there are 10. 10.
How is that made up?
Chris, do you want to take that?
There are 2 from CFU, 2 from CUSP, 2 from the Supporters Club, 2 from Amber Bells, and 2 from Coconuts.
Did everybody hear that? 2 from Coconuts, 2 from Amber Bells, 2 from the Supporters Club, 2 from CUSP, and 2 from CFU. They are selected, I think, by those fan groups. But it's also slightly disproportionate, but we're not going to argue about that. Yeah. But I don't necessarily think, this is my personal view, that is the only way in which the constitution of the Shadow Board should be made up. It was probably a sensible starting point as we got going. But it becomes a bit disparate, and then there are people who are in both CUSP and CFU and amber bells. Maybe not. Most of this audience is not in amber bells, but some people are. So I think that will change, and I think that it will very possibly be part of the legislative process that there are certain criteria applied to the makeup of the Shadow Board. I think it has the potential to be a really, really good thing for supporters if used correctly, and not to complain about the burgers or the state of the toilets. I'm looking at you. Anything else on Shadow Board? Great, thank you. It's me next. Waiting for my glamorous assistant. So, every now and again, it's sensible and good practice to review what any organisation, what's its purpose, where's it going, how's it going to get there. So, over the last months, we've been going through a process to make sure that we are still relevant in this ever-changing and fast-changing world. And even though we do good stuff, that doesn't mean that we do all the good stuff we could do, and it doesn't mean all the stuff that we do is necessarily good. So we've been through a process of reviewing the objectives and mission, and then challenging ourselves on those three questions. So some of you may know a business theorist called Simon Sinek. He's a great speaker. He shot to fame on a TED talk about it starts with why. If you understand your why are you here, you can then work out how you're going to get there, and then you can work out what you need to do, the activities to actually get there. So we've been going through that process. Next slide, please, Leanne. So when we were set up 25 years ago, there were three main areas that were identified as the reason for CFU to exist. One was to support the club. The club has changed dramatically in that time. The Football Regulation Governance Bill will change that again, about how we can support the club. So whilst that part of the landscape is unknown, what is that Football Governance Bill, Football Regulation Bill going to deliver or require us to deliver and the club to deliver? We're just going to park that one at the moment. There are obvious changes. The club doesn't need our financial support anymore. I don't think that we've got quite as much money as Mr. Barry. But what they do require is our assistance and help in supporting them in other ways. So we will continue to do what we do today, and when the legislative process is done, we will come back just to make sure that the context that gives us, we can respond to. The second of the original purposes, reasons for us being here, was to help promote the club in the community. We will obviously continue to do this, but with the enormous rise of the foundation, an awful lot of that work that wasn't being done 25 years ago by the club is now being done by the club with much, much better resources, of course, than we have. It's a whole organisational structure in itself. So we're not actively going to pursue that. That doesn't mean that we will not do things, but it means that we won't actively be pursuing a role. We will be talking to the club if we have ideas. But we will be concentrating our efforts much more on the third point, which is to represent the fans and the well-being of the fans' interests and well-being. So this is the bit that we're now about to move on to. So this seemed a particularly great moment to get a little bit of feedback, get some ideas as to the types of things that you would like CFU to be representing you on and improving your well-being in many aspects, probably mostly around football, but our role is to represent you as fans, not you as fans when you're within the Abbey. So, has anybody got any thoughts, things that they would like to see, that they think that CFU can play a role in? half an hour. It's fine. We can come back to it. We do mail shot, put it on the next one. Please give it a bit of thought, because the whole purpose of us being here is to do the things that you, our members, are wanting us to do. So we can carry on and do what we think is right, but we might be missing some important things. We might be missing some things that can have some real value to the supporters groups. So we'll put something out on the next mail. Please respond if you wish, if you've got some thoughts. Doesn't matter if you want to do it that way, we will take it in. We've got a session, can't quite remember, a couple of weeks' time now, to kind of begin that process, and we'll, when we come up with something that's a bit more structured in terms of the thinking, in terms of the activities that we will be focusing on, then we'll send that around as well in a newsletter quite soon. Great, thank you very much. Now the most important part of the evening. Right, first of all, before we move on to the raffle, has anybody got anything like to say, raise on anything we've heard tonight, or anything you haven't heard tonight? No, must be time to go home. So, the raffle.
Noel, would you like to come to students so close?
Right, some of them merchandise.
It's first choice.
Yeah.
Oh dear, Terry Wilby.
See my glasses. Say there.
Sal.
Yeah.
Just read the numbers.
Stu.
Stu.
That's me.
Stu. Oh, Stu.
Sal, yeah.
That's Stu, yeah. There you get out of there.
Thank you.
That's yours, is it?
Yep, that's me.
Yeah, do the numbers, Carl. That's kind of how traditionally it works.
Oh, really, yeah?
Green 421, and that is Godric. He's gone. Let's put my notes in.
We should give him a back, shouldn't we?
Blue 616, and that is Scott McGeorge. Green 231, Hillary. How unusual. Blue 536, and that is Leanne.
Sell it back to yourself.
Green 236, Jim H. Blue 591, Terry Wilby again.
No, I don't want to draw again. April.
Forget the ticket.
That's what I done. Blue 376, and it is Tim Wright. Yellow 251, and that is Wendy Twin. Blue 386, Tim Wright again. Yellow 271. No name. That's yellow and white. Is that one of yours?
Last one.
Last one.
Last one. That's okay.
Try and find Mike. Blue. That's blue.
Blue 551.
Oh, he did as well.
That is Steve Edwards.
Very much.
Oh dear.
Thank you.
You can carry the bag.
I get to do something with the bag. We done? Yeah. Gina? We done? Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you. Appreciate your time and input. And let's hope that the next 14 games are successful enough that we'll be back here next year as a big one side. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.